Hello, my name is Alex, and welcome to Eclectic Eccentrics, a series in which we will be looking at some marvellous and some not so marvellous individuals who have been described as eccentric somewhere along the way. Their stories might delight, terrify, or intrigue you, but they will always entertain. Hello, thank you for joining me and my dulcet tones as we talk through another Eclectic Eccentric. We have reached our penultimate episode of the series, but do not fear, we have a lot of eccentricity still to cover. Today, we are looking at what happens when a person with an eccentric personality manages to work their way to the top of a government. The results, as you can probably deduce, are quite something to behold. Saparmurat Niyazov, or to give him his full, self-titled moniker, His Excellency Saparmurat Turkmenbasi, President of Turkmenistan and Chairman of the Cabinet of Ministers, was a Turkmen politician who ruled over Turkmenistan from 1985 to 2006. Born on the 19th of February 1940, Niyazov's childhood, like many of the eccentrics we have already looked at in this series, was not a happy one. His father reportedly died in World War II, though there are suggestions that his father in fact dodged the fighting and was sentenced by a military court, with his mother and two brothers being killed in an earthquake in 1948. Placed initially in a Soviet orphanage, he was passed into the care of a distant relative shortly after. After finishing school, Niyazov qualified as an electrical engineer in 1967. However, during this time he had already developed a keen interest in politics and had been a member of the Communist Party since 1962. He was ultimately very successful, and in 1990 he became the Chairman of the Supreme Soviet of the Turkmen SSR, or, to put it simply, the President. Niyazov came to power at a time when the Soviet Union was crumbling, and he soon created a cult of personality, replacing images of Lenin and Marx with images of himself. In an effort to exert full control, he renamed towns, schools, airports, and even a meteorite. The national anthem was changed to refer to him personally, with the Hippocratic Oath being replaced with an oath to the president. He also made effective use of the press, which dotingly, and I'm sure with total free will, pumped out propaganda in support of him and his many causes. Not satisfied with just newspaper stories, however, Niyazov wrote a 2-volume book called Rumena, which was probably his most powerful propaganda tool. The Rumena is a curious collection of genres, from spiritual advice to short stories. It also contains a fabricated history of Turkmenistan, which was allegedly meant to recover real Turkmen history without Soviet distortions. As you would expect with any dictator worth his salt, Niyazov made reading of the Rumena mandatory. It is recorded that new governmental employees were tested on the book at job interviews, and an exam on its teachings was part of the driving test in Turkmenistan. Turkmen State University even had a department of the Holy Runema of Turkmenbashi the Great, and Runema studies were pursued as a major research agenda in the country, often at the cost of other academic disciplines. It was also reported that if you read the Runema 3 times, you'd go to heaven. Needless to say, and as one would probably have expected, the book did also contain a creation story about Niyazov. He was clearly a very special kind of guy. Beyond the installation of a gold statue of himself which rotated to always face the sun, it could be said that Niyazov was a very giving, considerate dictator. Obviously very concerned that his citizens may forget the time, he gave everyone in the country a watch, with his portrait in the dial. Maybe I am being a bit too quick to judge. To be fair, he did abolish the death penalty, and every year during Ramadan, Niyazov would grant pardons, stating, "Let this humane act on the part of the states serve strengthening truly moral values of the Turkmen society. Let the entire world know that there has never been a place for evil and violence on the blessed Turkmen soil." Now, this may all sound well and good, kind and forgiving, like a god perhaps, except that under Niyazov rules, Turkmenistan had the lowest life expectancy in Central Asia. Ah, I hear you say, listener, maybe it was because of the country's poor financial status. Yes, perhaps. The gold statue, for example, had only cost $12 million, and Niyazov himself only had a wealth of around $3 billion, most of which was stashed overseas in Germany. But I can't imagine his decision to close all hospitals outside of the capital city helped much, with Niyazov saying, "If people are ill, they can come to Ashgabat." I should probably add that in 2003, he fired all the doctors anyway, and replaced them with military conscripts. It wasn't just the hospitals that Niyazov decided to close, for he also closed all the libraries, because in his opinion, Turkmens don't read. This said, he was truly a man who wanted Turkmenistan to be a full democracy. So, as the effective dictator he was, he declared himself president for life. That old chestnut. As you've probably realised, Niyazov did not always make the best decisions for his citizens, though arguably his choices worked very well for him. Some of the laws he passed through were very interesting, and at times, almost unbelievable. Here are some of my favourites. A ban on lip syncing, stating it had a negative effect on the development of musical arts. Renaming of months and days of the week. Abolishing the Turkmen name for bread, and renaming it Gurban Sultan, which was his mother's name. As highlighted being a thoughtful dictator, he built an ice rink near the capital city. The reason for this? So that those living in the desert country could learn to skate. Ballets, circuses, and philharmonic orchestras were banned, as they were un-Turkmen-like, whatever that means. Niyazov also banned news anchors from wearing makeup. The official reason was that he believed that they should appear natural. The other unofficial reason states it's because he struggled to tell the difference between male and female anchors. Not sure how banning makeup helped, but there you go. He also banned car radios, because he thought they were useless. I assume that he never had to personally drive anywhere. He may have enjoyed the Archers if he'd given it a go. No one lives forever, however, and on the 21st of December 2006, aged 66, Saparmurat Niyazov died of a heart attack. Following a decadent funeral, where mourners fainted due to their grief, or so they say, he was buried in his hometown of Kypjak. Following Niyazov's death, many of his peculiar laws were quickly overturned. There is one law, however, which is continued. A law which celebrates melons, originally named Melon Day. Melon Day is a harvest festival and holiday celebrated on the second Sunday of August and is still celebrated to this day. Niyazov's influence is still seen around the country. Slowly, however, Turkmenistan is removing all memory of their once eccentric dictator. They've kept the ice rink, mind. And there we have it, the eccentric dictator. Usually the behaviour of most eccentrics has little impact on the people around them, and is, by and large, harmless on the grand scale of things. In this case, given the political power Niyazov wielded, decisions which, had they been made on a smaller scale, may have been seen as quite comical, had a huge and detrimental impact to the lives of those living in Turkmenistan. It's easy to see these odd laws as funny, but can you imagine having to live with him as your president and lawmaker? Especially if you needed a doctor. Niyazov's life was quite something, and I have hardly scratched the surface when it comes to it, but I'm acutely aware I don't want these podcasts dragging on too much. There is a lot I didn't cover, such as Niyazov's rise to power, and the assassination attempt on him which led to CCTV cameras being placed on every major street in Turkmenistan. If you have found this particular episode interesting, I would thoroughly recommend you go and read more about Niyazov. Thank you very much, as always, for joining me, dear listener. I'm very glad to have had your company. I will be back with the final episode of the series in a week's time, and I am looking very much forward to sharing it with you. Until then, goodbye.